Good afternoon to all, and welcome to today's webinar on the challenges of nurse warriors battling the front line. I am Bobby Ramesh, former Group Director of Nursing, Parkway Healthcare India Private Limited, which is the India Operation Division of Parkway Pentai. I'm pleased to be hosting the panel today. I'm also a Principal Assessor for NABH and have 24 years of experience in clinical, teaching, and administrative domains of nursing. It's indeed my privilege to welcome all the expert panelists, 5 of them from across the country, who would be sharing their first-hand experience with us and various other challenges as well. I would like to thank all the participants for registering and joining us today. As you all know, COVID-19 is a universal crisis, and the present moment feels like a war. Unlike war, we have an invisible enemy who's attacking people in unexpected places, irrespective of their caste, creed, or religion, and sometimes hiding in people with no symptoms. The challenges that Florence Nightingale faced as a nurse when she went to Crimean War in 1854 were as much as the result of outbreak of cholera and typhoid as a poor treatment of wounds. In the present day crisis, where the virus is so contagious and it's a new experience for all of us, with new policies and guidelines coming up every other day, it's a challenging time for the healthcare workers across the globe, especially for the nurses who are with the patients 24/7. It's truly incredible to see the passion at which our nurse warriors are serving our community and country during this crisis. So in today's topic, we'll be discussing the challenges, and I'll be asking 2 rounds of questions to all the panelists. The time limit would be 4 minutes and to a max of 5 minutes each. And at the end of this discussion, you'll be giving a 1-minute take-home message for the audience, after which we'll be having a question and answer session. And for the participants, if you scroll down, you can see a question and answer chat box. So if you have any queries, you can type your message or your questions there. And during your question and answer session, we'll be definitely answering those questions pertaining to the challenges which nurses are facing at the front line. And those questions, if the time limit, if it doesn't permit, then we'll definitely connect with you all. You all can connect with us through the Facebook link, which has been communicated with you all. So my first question would be to Ms. Soni Mole. I'd like to introduce Ms. Soni Mole here, who's the Chief Nursing Officer of Aster Medicity, which is the flagship hospital of Aster DM Healthcare, Kochi. She has 20 years of experience in nursing, clinical side and administration side. She has done her master's in nursing and presently pursuing her PhD from the prestigious IIT Delhi. She is also an assessor for NABH. So Ms. Soni Mole, your hospital was one of the first private hospitals in the country, in Kerala, which has collaborated with government for the management of COVID patients. So as this is a new experience for everybody across the globe, and especially in our country, how did you manage your nurses, especially with regard to their roles and responsibility in additional roles which you had to give them, additional roles or expanded roles? Can you please elaborate on that?
First of all, thank you so much for the invite. And coming to the topic, so as we said about the proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. We also invented several roles of the nurses apart from the routine clinical roles. The first role I could start with the screening guards. The screening guards are the nurses who deployed for the screening of both internal and external customers for the temperature, the first screening. So we appointed some nurses and we are deployed for this purpose only for screening the external and internal customers. And the second expanded role would be for the fever clinic nurses. And the nurses are trained and deployed for the fever clinic in the detection of the symptoms. And this clinic we operated in adult, pediatric, ER, and gynecology specialties separately. And the third, the role, expanded role is the CSR nurses. The CSR nurses are allotted for the camps and also for the screening. And we have extended our screening to the Cochin Airport, the Cochin Railway, South and North railway stations. And also we have utilized these nurses for the awareness camps to increase the knowledge and the awareness for spreading the pandemic. Again, the fourth expanded role is the kiosk nurses. The kiosk nurses are the specific nurses. They are running the kiosk for the sampling. These nurses are technically trained for how to collect the swab, and these nurses' main responsibility is to collect swabs from the suspected patients as well as the elective cases we are operating. And the fifth role is the home care nurses. And this again has an expanded role to assist our external customers. So the main purpose we need to limit the hospital stays of our routine patients. So we extended our post-discharge care to the home care sector, in which we given the medical administration, post-discharge advice, and some blood sampling, and even the pharmacy dispatch we did through these pharmacy nurses. Again, the sixth expanded role is the reserve nurses. The reserve nurses are nothing but the backup of the ICU nurses. So these are the selected highly competent nurse from the ward setup. So we selected from a common examination and we given a 1 week training and we upgraded them and we given temporary privilege to them to work in an ICU sector when our ICU manpower is got exhausted with our pandemic. So these are the special roles I have created in Aster Medicity to handle the pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Sonimol. Nice to know the roles, the expanded roles of the nurses. Definitely sharing experience, your first-hand experience at this point of time definitely will be a new update for the nurse leaders or the nurses who's watching this from across the country. The next speaker would be Ms. Belinda Sawant. And Ms. Belinda Sawant, are you there?
Yes, Bobby.
So I'd like to introduce Ms. Belinda Sawant, who's the Director of Nursing Services at Saifi Hospital, Mumbai. She has 24 years of experience in the clinical, teaching, and administrative domains of nursing. And she's also the Vice President for Critical Care Nursing Society, and she has published various articles in nursing journals to her credit. So, Ms. Belinda, my question to you would be, there had been a lot of staff safety related issues which cropped up during the initial phase, which we read in the media, or which when we discussed with others, everybody were discussing, especially when the crisis was at the initial stage. So your hospital is also a COVID center. So I would request you to share your thoughts and to share your experience on how did you handle it while managing the COVID facility at your hospital, and how big is your COVID facility and how many nurses you have there?
Thank you, Ms. Bobby, for asking this question. We are at present taking almost care of 80 COVID patients in our hospital from the time we have started. And we do face challenges related to staff safety. When we talk about challenges related to staff safety, the focus is mainly on healthy, safety, and decent working conditions. I'm sure we as nursing leaders, as healthcare leaders, we would like to have zero staff infection rate. And this can be greatly achieved by intense education and training. So what do we train our staffs on? Basically on COVID-19, on hand hygiene practices, which is a good old practice. We have learned from day one when we have joined our schools and colleges of nursing, the 7 steps of hand hygiene, the 5 movements of hand hygiene, the use of PPEs. PPEs is not something new. Of course, the grades of PPEs has changed over a period of time. Maybe gloves which we use is to prevent, NSI and protect ourselves from body fluid exposure. Then came with HIV. There was a strong involvement of PPEs, and which we all use in our hospitals with the HIV kit. And now, of course, COVID-19 has come with a bang with the use of PPEs. The grades of PPEs are different, and we'll be talking about it later, where the sequencing for donning and doffing of PPE is very important for preventing transmission of COVID-19. Then other disinfection practices. The disinfection practices, the types, the solutions that we use, the disinfectants that we use, the dilutions that we need to take care of, the frequency of cleaning, the routine and the terminal cleaning, not only of the patient unit, but also of the equipments, the surfaces, all these needs to be looked into. Then is the engineering controls. Maintaining negative pressure in these COVID areas is of utmost importance, not only for patient safety, but mainly for the staff safety. Then goes along is the medical waste management, linen management, and of course, patient and staff flow movement. In every hospital, I'm sure we have got dedicated lifts for patient movement, for staff movement, for support services movement. But when it comes to COVID-19, there has to be a unidirectional flow so that there is no cross-contamination when patients are moved across the hospital, or when the nurses or the staffs move in the COVID areas, or the support services that we provide to the patients. Last but not the least, it's the nutrition. Nutrition, because our nurses, our staff works in this COVID area, so they require high protein diet. And let me tell you, in our hospital, we provide protein milkshake, immunity boosters when the nurses or the staffs go on in these units. The second challenge that we face is establishing a scientific, reasonable shift schedule. Let me tell you, this is very challenging, not only for the nursing leaders, but also for the healthcare organizations. Why is a real challenge to us? As nurse leaders, we always face shortage of nurses. And to add to this, COVID has brought down the lockdown situation, which is an essential, important, or a prime need at this moment of time. So with all this, it causes a lot of pressure on us, or it is a challenge that we need to meet. Coming back to the nursing fraternity, you know that we are a female-dominated workforce. So we have got our nurses have got their family responsibilities. Along with that, you may have a group of nurses or few nurses who are pregnant. They have got their own health issues. And living in the city of Mumbai, let me tell you, we have got a lot of space constraints. There are facilities may not be available to put, nurses who are traveling from home at a particular area, because it's not only the space, not only the availability, but also the rentals that are very high in the city of Mumbai. So all this causes a lot of challenge related to staff scheduling. And staff scheduling ultimately is from the availability at hand. So majority of the hospitals or majority of us have to depend on a hostelize, have to depend on the nurses who can travel, who can conveniently travel to the hospital, and attend to our patients. So in our hospital, keeping all this in mind, we have got a 6-hour shift, one for the day, for the morning and for the evening, and 12-hour shift for the night. Of course, when they do 12-hour shift in the night, they have got a break after 5 to 6 hours where they have to doff off completely, take a good 1-hour break where they can refresh themselves, meet the nature's call, and relax and come back wearing a new PP. So this is how we have planned our staffing or the scheduling. Of course, we also take inputs from our nurses to know how comfortable they are with the staffing schedule. Because let me tell you, when somebody wears a PP, it is a stress for that person itself too. Because in that, when you wear the PP for long 4 to 6 hours, you cannot consume anything. Not from the point, that to avoid too much of handling and to prevent infection or transmission, the more number of times you handle your own PPs, or when you are doffing and you're donning, you're again giving an exposure to yourself to infection. So it is a very stressful thing for the nurses to be in PPs. So that is how we have planned our schedules. Then next is taking full control of full advantage of infection control system. In our hospital, I take a lot of pride in our infection control committee, or the activities that we updated, which we take. In this situation, real-time monitoring and instant correction is of prime most importance. For example, in some organizations, there may be CCTV cameras where you can, check on to how your staffs are moving in the COVID unit. In the donning and the doffing area, you can have videos and posters, how to don and how to doff. In our hospital, for example, we have placed mirrors. so that that the person who is donning and doffing can see her or herself, where actually we require an observer who will needs to look into the donning and doffing. But because of staff constraint, this is how we go about in our hospital. Providing psychological counseling is another challenge that we need to meet, because we have got young nurses away from home, so they come to you with many queries and many concerns. So that is another aspect which we need to handle at our level. So our head nurses, our senior nurses are the ones who give motivational talks to them, passes on the feedback to us so that we can take appropriate steps. Of course, at our level, as nursing heads, we can meet our staffs. In our hospital, we have got an open door policy. In the afternoon time, there's an hour which I have kept for the nurses. They can come to my office anytime, speak their grievances, their concerns, and we can sort it out amicably. So this is how we need to, take care of their psychological aspect and avoid unnecessary contact. When we started with the COVID ward, we were very clear on the guidelines of minimal patient handling. So we had given a directive, how often you should assess the patient, how often you should go to the patient's room for assessment purpose, for treatment purpose, because we did not want the nurses to go very often to the patient's room as we regularly do. Of course, when it comes to critically ill patients, they have to, take care of the patient just like any critically ill patient, and carry on the care. Next is about minimal documentation. So as far as possible, we have tried to be paperless, but even whatever medical records we are using for the patient, we have laminated copies of those medical records with a marker pen which you can write, and it is imposted on those medical records, and you can wash it with soap and water and send to the medical record department. So this is how we have gone about. Then we have got smartphones by which the patients can, get in touch with the consultants, with their family members, because we do not allow with the relative to give the patient. So there's, by means of smartphones, they can communicate. The nurses can communicate with the patient. They can communicate with the consultants or the supportive departments, and see that the care and the management is going on. Monitor in real time and remote assistance is what we are doing through the smartphones. Let me tell you that we take pride. Our organization, we know that the patients are alone with us. They have no family member over here. So we have formulated something called as the COVID empathy team. So it's a group of doctors and nurses who divide themselves in these COVID wards. They wear the level 3 PPE and they go and meet each and every individual patient in the ward and assure them that we are with you. So this is how these are the challenges which we have come across. From the patient point of view, from the staffing point of view, and this is what we have, we as an organization has done in our best to meet these challenges.
Thank you, Ms. Belinda, for sharing your experience at your hospital. How many bedded is your COVID facility?
It's 80 beds.
Okay, 80 bedded COVID facility. Thank you. So this donning, doffing, many of the participants, some of them may not be aware. It is about donning is putting on your personal protective equipment, and doffing is the procedure of removing the personal protective equipment, and the order of which guidelines are there. CDC guidelines, you all can Google or go to YouTube. You can see how, in which order it has to be worn, in which order it has to be removed. And in many of the hospitals, as Ms. Belinda has already mentioned, that they are having a system of the person who's donning is being monitored, or the person while removing the personal protective equipment is being monitored or helped by a buddy, so that their safety is taken care of.
Right.
So thank you. And our next speaker is Ms. Josephine Cyril. Ms. Josephine Cyril is working as a chief of nursing at Artemis Hospital, Delhi. She has 33 years of nursing experience in clinical and administration side. She has done her graduation in nursing along with her MBA in hospital management. She is also a principal assessor for NABH. Over to you, Ms. Josephine. In many groups, when people are talking, especially in the hospital among the nursing heads, some are saying that the sample collection is done by the nurses. Some say no, it is the doctors who are doing it. And some say nurses should be permitted to do and they should be privileged to do. And some are telling that nurses cannot be doing that. So what is your experience at your hospital, whether sample collection can be done by the nurses for these COVID patients? And if so, what training to be given and how they have to be privileged? Apart from this, I would request you to touch upon the nursing training during this present crisis, because one of the important aspects in our nursing department across any hospitals is the training of nurses. So during COVID time, with nurses divided for COVID and non-COVID setup and with social distancing, what are the challenges faced by the nursing head of the hospital with regard to the training also? I would request you to explain.
So thank you. Thanks for the invite and a very important question for this panel. Coming to training, we all know that training is the backbone of nursing. And especially during this time, during COVID time, Corona, none of us are, familiar with this disease, this pandemic, and nurses themselves are very confused. So what we have done, how we organized our training, I'll tell you. See, I'll answer to your first question of sampling. See, when patients are coming to the OPD, today it's a very less number of patients are coming to the OPD. We have around 30 to 40% of patient population coming. Patients are screened at the entry level itself at the OPD as well as at the emergency. And everything is very organized and very systematic, and there is a process flow in place. So the patients who are screened, and there is a questionnaire for it, and those who have at least 2 symptoms, there are multiple symptoms, like they had been away from this place to some place, that means they had a travel history, they have fever, breathlessness, cough, cold, sneezing, all these symptoms, at least if they are having 2 symptoms or 1 symptom, they are referred to the flu clinic. And at our institute, it is in the flu clinic, the clinician is the first person to decide whether this patient sample to be taken or not. So in the flu clinic, after the initial assessment, the patient is taken to the isolation room, which is with negative pressure, and nurses are fully trained in the emergency room itself how to do this procedure of sample collection. Now, sample collection is done in all the organizations, I agree. There are organizations where sample collection is done on a, large number of patients and other people undergo sample collection. But in our place, sample collection is done on only patients who are symptomatic and who are referred by the clinician for the sample collection, patients who are pre-operative, patients who are waiting for their surgery, and patients who themselves, willingly saying that I want to get screened. These are the only group of patients who are getting screened. Now, this procedure, it can be very well done by the nurses. And it is not necessary nurses only have to do it. It is the microbiologist who heads the infection control department who have done the procedure. The SOP, the standard operating procedure, is done by her. It is shared with everybody. So we as nursing heads have to train our team, young nurses, on the procedure of sample collection, the theory part. And then comes the practical aspect. We can get the help of infection control nurses, nurse educators, senior nurses. But in our institute, we had the privilege of microbiologists themselves coming and training the nurses. So the complete training is done practical as well as theory for the nurses posted in emergency room, for the nurses posted in the pre-operative ward, and also for the nurses posted in the COVID unit. So all these group of nurses are trained. So they understood anatomy and physiology of the upper respiratory system and the challenges in collecting the specimen, how to collect it, the risk associated with the sample collection, and how to transport it. The complete information is shared with them. Now, how we check whether they are doing it correctly, we have made a checklist, and there is somebody like a trainer watching you on when the other person is collecting the sample. When a nurse is collecting the sample, we check on that the person is following the right procedure. And of course, the sample is collected from nasopharyngeal and oropharyngeal. Sample is preserved, transported, and depends on which lab it is, put in the right containers, labeled, barcoded, and it reaches the laboratory. Now, coming to the training part, you were telling about the training. Training has to be very, very organized. First of all, there is an anxiety and fear and ignorance and uncertainty in the air. Nurses are not familiar with this topic. So we need to divide the training into multiple modules. And Under each module, you can have subheadings. And your nurse educators also should be briefed by the nursing heads and senior nurses the need-based education. What is the kind of topic we should be teaching? So sample collection is one of the topic to be taught. So initially, what should be taught to the nurses is an introduction to pandemic. What is this corona infection is all about? What are the signs and symptoms? Who is the suspect? And who is actually suffering from a SARI, that is severe acute respiratory illness. So an introductory part is done. Then you get into the real screening part. What kind of screening happens in OPD? What kind of screening happens in ER? Who needs admission? How a nurse functions in the COVID unit. Then comes the basic standard precautions and biomedical waste segregation. And somebody has mentioned about the disinfectants. We need to get into the detailed part of disinfectants, even though it is majorly used by the housekeeping and GDA. Because MSDS, material safety data sheet, also should be shared with nurses so that they supervise and educate the housekeeping and GDA, they are doing the right job. We also have to teach the nurses again a revision on hand hygiene and 5 moments of hand hygiene compliance, especially for admitted patients. This is very, very important because they can become carriers and cross-infect, that we call it as exposure. We also, like Belinda said, donning, doffing, we can look in the mirror. What we have done is donning, doffing, beautiful flow diagrams are done, and it is put right in the donning, doffing area. And also we have defined a checklist, just like a sampling checklist and audit checklist. So we have somebody supervising whether I am donning properly, doffing properly. Then comes how you discard it, that is doffing, and also whether you take adequate precaution, like post-doffing, your hygiene aspect. They have to bath, shower in the unit itself, and get refreshed into their personal clothing before they leave the department. Now, inside the COVID unit, they have to take care of patients who are stable but positive, and patients who are in the high dependency unit, patients who are critically ill. So there can be care bundles along with other things, which all we have to include in our training calendar. And the last but not the least is the discharge plan. When patients are getting discharged, how they are, what is the socio-economic background, how they are living, in which circumstance, the complete holistic background we should know so that we can educate them how they manage their life back home. Because we also hear stories about people who become negative again becoming positive. So we don't want that kind of a situation to happen to our patients. So we teach them. That comes in patient and family education. We have to educate them. So that is all about how we plan our training calendar, which includes sampling training calendar. And also after doing all these things, we need to privilege our nurses for the sample collection and care of COVID patients.
Thank you so much. I would request Ms. Sonimol to also share the training method she's following in her hospital, because you have a huge group of nurses. And during COVID times too, you had a lot of regular IPD cases and the COVID patients as well. So what was the methodology of training followed, and what are some of the topics, as Ms. Josephine has told? Can you please share with us?
So in our hospital, we also formulating an ICU module with all the infection control topics included. So with the donning, doffing, and all the necessary ventilator management and the medication part, everything we included. And we are along with the theoretical 1 hour class per daily. So we scheduled for our hands-on practices in the ICU setup. And also we have a detailed evaluation also. After that, the highly competent nurses are selected for the ICU setup for the ICU backup. And these trainings are headed by nurse educator and the intensivist of the ICU. So these are the training modules. We have already the given module of ICU and the infection control module. So both modules we have run parallelly to educate the nurses.
Thank you, Ms. Sonimol. My next question would be to Ms. Muppidi Rajeshwari. Ms. Rajeshwari is an associate professor at Apollo College of Nursing, Hyderabad. And she is also the president of Trained Nurses Association of India, Telangana chapter. She has over 33 years of experience in clinical and teaching side of nursing. And she's also a member of Telangana Nursing Council. Over to you, Ms. Rajeshwari. I would request you to share the challenges, because such a pandemic, the first time the world is facing, and with this lockdown, what are the challenges faced by the college and the faculties? Can you please share your experience?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Like we, all the students of Telangana colleges and schools, they were in the clinical posting like in the month of March. It was started from January and they were in the clinical postings. And on 16th March, the government announced that we have to go, I mean, all educational institutions will be closed. So we kept all the colleges and schools, they kept their students in their hostels because we don't like how long it will take us. They don't like from 16th to 31st. So we said that maybe it's only for 15 days we make the students stay back in the hostel. And we thought of planning our own, I mean, almost all the colleges. And by the time, like the next day onwards, we have started planning because the hostel, the staff were staying there, faculty, they were taking care of the students. So we were like, we were planning like how to go on the teaching class, how we will do.
There is some connectivity issue with Rajeshwari. The voice is echoing. Could you please be a little away from the laptop, and can you please speak once again, reconnect it? Because voice is not clear. Yeah, now you can. Can you hear me? No, the voice is echoing and it is not clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So like from the second day, that is from 17th onwards, like we started getting calls from the media and the people, like student universities from outside, like they were calling and asking why you are keeping the students in the college, I mean, in the hospitals, why didn't you send them back to the homes? We were not planning to send them. So we were keeping them, I mean, almost all the colleges and schools, they were keeping their students in the hospitals. And the next day, like most of the local students, they went up, and suddenly Modi sir has announced, like Bharat, this curfew, this one. Then the next day, before that, the people, students, their parents started pressurizing principal and asking for the leaves and all. They wanted to take their students back. So most of the students, they went up, and like nearly in Apollo, we have nearly 180 students staying in the hostels. So these students who are left over in the hostels and who went home, they were having so many challenges because they were in the middle of the academic year. This one they went out, so they were having so many challenges. Like they were thinking, what is going to happen? Like,
So,
is going to open.
We can't hear you properly, Ms. Rajeshwari. I will get back to you shortly. We'll get back to you shortly. You can exit and reconnect, I think. And I'll go to the next panelist, who is Ms. Swati Rane. Ms. Swati Rane has done her graduation in nursing, and she has done her master's in hospital administration, and she has done a PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science. And she has done a PhD, interestingly, in how the work environment has effect of work environment on the nursing practices and outcomes. And may I request Ms. Swati Rane, and also she's a Vice President of Clinical Nursing Research Society of India. So I would request Ms. Swati Rane to brief about the Clinical Nursing Research Society and the aims and objectives of that, and how it is contributing to the nursing, and how it will help the nurses in the hospital tide over crises like pandemics. Over to you, Ms. Swati.
Good afternoon. to all, and thank you, Bobby, for giving me this opportunity to come in the panel. And I'm happy to be with all the esteemed panelists. I basically, as Bobby said, that I'm from Clinical Nursing Research Society. And this Clinical Nursing Research Society was commissioned in 2019. And we have all the eminent leaders across the nation, like Madam Nirja Sood, Bimla Kapoor Madam, Sukhpal Madam. And these are various stalwarts who have come together to one objective which we always dreamt at nurses. And our mission, that is our thing, everybody's mission was that to promote research in clinical nursing. So there was always a bridge, okay, between the clinical nursing and research. So we all came together to bridge this gap and bring the culture of evidence-based nursing practice to give the best and the highest quality nursing practice comprehensively to India. And our vision is to create nursing workforce that represents all platforms pertaining to health, from policy making to the execution to the sustenance part. And this is, I think, every nurse's dream. And I, as a nursing student, always had that what they do in research, how did they do it? And that was my journey and how I did my PhD also. And after my PhD, I realized that, we all nurses are now highly educated, and we should come back and bring that dream possible. And that's how we made our objectives. So the first objective is to reflect on transformation of nursing from past to future. We want that quality assurance should come into nursing education. We want to understand the essence of nursing leadership. We want to take the nursing leadership from bedside to parliament, because we want our nurses to be everywhere. We want them to do nursing advocacy. We want them to bring nursing, because nursing is not only restricted to hospitals, it is a public health, and we have a larger role. And that's how we want to discuss these challenges in nursing practice and service excellence. We want to share views on bridging the gap between clinical practice of nurses and administration. We want to identify the nurse manager's role in evidence-based practice, both approach and implementation. And we want to deliberate now on legal aspects of independent nurse practitioners, because we have the best quality nurses in India. And we are very, very proud of all of us. So this is a platform we have created for all.
Could you please, Ms. Swati, could you please elaborate on any of the topics which, for which the nursing research have been initiated during this COVID time, or do you all have any plans to initiate any research topics in nursing, and some suggestions of topics for the audience as well?
No. We are already in the process, because you all know, because of the lockdown, ethical consideration is becoming a tight situation for all of us. So, but the researches are in pipeline. So we are working on psychological impact of COVID-19 on nurses. Also, we are working on, in the pipeline, we have many nurses from maternal and child health care. So maternal management during COVID-19 is one of the things we are working on. We are also working on how, because I am from hospital administration background and I was a hospital planner, and I'm working on what are the planning guidelines we should have at the infrastructure level for the COVID patients. So these are the three things which are in pipeline, but there are many others which we can think of.
So what would be the challenges with regard to nursing research presently, and how to overcome any measures you all are planning of?
The challenges now, because of lockdown and because of the COVID thing, our nurses are all at the frontliners, and most of them are all working as trainers, and they are all having their work going on. Okay, so currently directly approaching research is an issue, but we have started working on it. Our proposals are being ready, and we are trying to collaborate with ICMR people and NIMHANS people, so that, we, instead of doing something in silo, we do it together so that we can use their tools, because we are, as you know, we are still a baby as an organization. So we would like to collaborate and do a lot of things together. That is a challenge currently what we are facing, the ethical considerations.
Do you know of any hospitals which are doing clinical the research in nursing?
Yeah. AIMS is doing, NIMHANS is doing.
No, on this topic of COVID related anything.
Yeah. NIMHANS and AIMS are already doing it. And
doing
there are
doing on
psychological impact of COVID on nurses,
okay.
and also on the society.
Okay.
NIMHANS has done a beautiful guideline for all of us, which we can refer to.
Thank you so much, Ms. Swati. Over to Ms. Rajeshwari now. We had to get disconnected from Ms. Rajeshwari. So Ms. Rajeshwari, can you please share your experience and challenges which you all faced as a college and faculty during this lockdown and during this present crisis? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. I'll come back to you later. So we can't hear you. We'll come back to you later. So I'll get back to Ms. Josephine. Communication is very, very important. So is patient education, communicating with the patients and communicating with your team members and also amongst yourself. I remember an incident in my previous institution when after a surgery, a patient was bleeding and the patient's wife was very, very apprehensive and she went to the nurse and nurse said, surgery के बाद ऐसे होता है, चिंता मत करो, ठीक हो जाएगा. And then she called, she kept on repeating this to reassure the patient's wife. Surgery के बाद ऐसे होता है, चिंता नहीं करो, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. Then the patient's wife was so anxious that she called the consultant and the consultant came running immediately and patient was wheeled back to the OT for arrest of bleeding. And then the patient from the operation theater went to the ICU. Now the patient's wife made a big complaint and hue and cry that when my husband was bleeding, how can the nurse tell me ऐसे होता है और सब ठीक हो जाएगा? How this is the way how you all are training your staff. This is the way the staff is supposed to communicate. And it was very big challenging time when such patients and relatives complain to us about how our nurses educate or communicate to them. So I would request you to share with us the challenges in patient education and the challenges to communicate among themselves and other healthcare team members, especially with all this personal protective equipment after wearing this N95 mask and all. Won't it be difficult, and how you all are managing?
So, Bobby, communication is a challenge. So if you look at, nurses, we have nurses coming from all parts of the country. And working in a setup where we have patients also, 20 to 30% coming from different countries who cannot communicate in Hindi or even English. So nurses have to be really skilled. This all communication does not happen all of a sudden. It takes time. It takes a lot of planning, lot of thought. So communication, how to improve, how to make it happen at various levels. That planning has to happen in the minds of nurse leaders, in fact, almost every day. So what we have done is during induction itself. Now, of course, induction cannot happen in the way we used to do. Nurses attend communication sessions by HR department, by nurse educators, by nurse leaders. So they understand that communication is the need of the hour. Now, during COVID period, the most difficult thing is communication because you need to communicate to supply chain. You need to communicate junior nurses to the senior nurses. You have nurses in full body suit in the COVID unit. You need to communicate something to the leader over there. You also need to communicate to them for education, for their leaves, their comfort, their diet, their recreation, their stress relieving factors. It is a challenge. So what we are doing is meet them more often. So at least every other day, meet them in small groups and also create groups like a WhatsApp group and other group through mails. You talk to them because communication can be verbal communication or even face-to-face communication, means non-verbal communication. So I think we are quite successful in that. We don't allow our nurses to go inside the COVID unit with their personal mobile phones. They have the landlines only. And only the unit in charge has a phone, the mobile phone. So the communication, so the communication, so I think coming together every now and then, openness in communication, transparency in communication, understanding and being a good listener to the team so that they understand we are listening to them, their grievances, their issues. And I think that is helping a lot. And also take the issues to the higher management so that we can talk to them. So overall, when you communicate in that fashion with the transparency, with openness, with the readiness to make things happen, people understand you better and they communicate effectively. So this is a challenge, this is going to exist, but somehow we are able to overcome this crisis through repeated small gatherings, small fun activities, because we can't be in larger groups. We need to maintain the social distancing as well. Now, through communication only, we can do patient and family education, which you want me to tell. Patient and family education happens from the time the patient is in the hospital, he is at the OPD level, he is in the emergency, he is in the COVID unit, he is in the preoperative area. The assigned nurse and the senior nurse leaders, in fact, any healthcare worker has a responsibility to educate that individual. And to sum up, the communication has to be very simple, especially related to COVID. Don't make them scared. Be simple, allay the fear, give them confidence, and we should have confidence. Our confidence comes at all levels when you have the knowledge. You are knowledgeable, you are frequently attending trainings, and your confidence is reflected when you communicate to your patients and patient attenders. And seeing your confidence and you educate them simple things like how to use mask, how to maintain personal hygiene, how to remove it, how to discard it. Because I see sometimes patients or patient attenders trying to use the same mask for days together, which is of no use. And even at home, what all things to take care, personal hygiene, and the kind of diet they should be having, immunity boosting foods, exercise, good sleep, how they can keep their health in good shape so that they will not become a victim of corona infection. So I think communication is simple communication for day to day, communication in the form of education, communication in the form of just listening to their problems, and overall communication through PPTs, through groups, through chatting. We have to come to now technology. We have to bring technology to our nurses because today we cannot have a formal classroom and educate them so that they will read all the forwarded materials, attachments, presentations they read and they upgrade their skills. So it is tough, but we are doing it.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Josephine, and over to Ms. Belinda. Could you please share your experience on the material management in your hospital, especially with regard to the personal protective equipments? Considering that during this present crisis, initially there was a big hue and cry about the usage of personal protective equipments and shortage of personal protective equipment. So I would request you to elaborate on that, Ms. Belinda.
Bobby, coming to availability of resources or materials and specialty, I think when we went about planning for a COVID unit, depending on the number of beds that we have for our patients, the number of critical beds that we have for these patients, we had to mobilize critical equipment from the ICU to these areas to make it a full equipped ICU. So we did not have any shortfalls in regard to that because we had those resources with us. Coming to PPE, we were very clear on how to go about planning PPEs. PPEs, the planning of PPEs will depend on the quantity. That is the guidelines on the level of PPE, what type of PPE you should be procuring, depending on the number of COVID beds, depending on the number of staffs per shift per day. Staffs, when I speak, it's not only about nurses, but also about doctors, physiotherapists, housekeeping staff, all this, the entire team that is involved in patient care. And the level of care. The level of PPE depends whether you're a direct patient handler or whether you're indirect patient handler. So based on these aspects, we decided on the quantity of PPE. Then the quality of PPE. The quality of PP is basically whether you wear a jumpsuit or whether you wear a gown, it should be an impermeable one. So this concept should be very clear in the minds of the staff, because they should wear away when they see a different color or a different design PP. So it should be an impermeable one. The thickness of it matters, because they have to be in the PP for long, 4 to 6 hours. So the comfort level of based on the thickness of the PP is also important. Next to the design, is it design? Is it coming to design? Is it well protective? Okay, is it overlapping? So all these aspects we had to take into consideration when we were planning for the PPs. Now, what are the challenges that we have faced related to PPs? Stock availability, yes, I would say that, because as we opened up our units, the patients just started pouring in. So we had to, in advance, make available the stocks and, procure it and keep it well stocked with us, so that we do not fall short of PPs. Coming to the cost of PPs, and I think this may be a challenge for all of us. I strongly recommend, if some government official is listening to me, to give the PPs at a subsidized rate. PP is a protective garment for the healthcare workers. It is just like a medicine that we would give to our patients. For example, dose therapy or AKT treatment, which is almost free for patients. So I would strongly recommend that PP should be given at a subsidized rate, to the hospital, so that it's easily available, it is cost effective, and we can use it when we are taking care of patients with COVID. Another challenge that we faced is related to the size of PPs. Okay, so healthcare workers or staffs who are taller, they had complaints that the PPs were not fitting in properly, and there was exposure of some body part. So this is another challenge that we faced. Now, coming to the appropriate use of PP. We have to keep in mind at this point of time, probably we are very comfortable across our country that we have got enough PPs. But probably with the surge of patients, we may come to a point that we may not get the resources as we are receiving right now. So appropriate use of PPs is a real challenge, or a true challenge that we need to take care of. And how do we do this? Is by training the staffs on the appropriate PP that each staff is supposed to be wearing. Whether it is a direct patient care handler, or whether it is the indirect patient care handler. What is happening is, because of this care, everybody wants to protect themselves adequately. Whether you are a clerical staff, whether you are a nursing staff, whether you are a non-medical staff. So that clarity has to be put in their mind that, yeah, at this level, you require to wear this particular PP, and this is how we are going to optimally utilize the PPs. Next is about the donning and doffing. I would again like to stress upon, it is just like you wear your surgical attire when you go into the operation theater. When you drape yourself in the operation theater, you don't wear your gloves first and then you wear your gown. So there is a sequence which has to be learned for donning and doffing a PP. Even when it comes to doffing a PP, there's a method how you take off the N95 mask, how you take off the goggles. So this all needs to be learned, needs to be trained, needs to be supervised, and it's a vicious cycle. Next is about the restriction of movement with PPs. Staffs working in the COVID areas should not move with the PPs across the hospital. They have to doff off, and they have to, restrict their movement with PPs across the hospital. So these are the challenges that we face, that, that ongoing training, ongoing supervision needs to be done. In our hospital, to overcome this, we have got a trainers group comprising of doctors, nurses, non-medical personnel. There's a group of trainers who train different category of staffs in the hospital, across the hospital, and keep on emphasizing them, keep on training them on what appropriate PP they should be using, how they should wear it, how they should take it off, and how they should dispose it is also very important. So these are...
So apart from the personal protective equipment, did you all have shortage of any other materials required? Because especially with the lockdown and with restrictions to movement. So that's what I wanted to know. And any other hospital chief of nursing would like to share?
In our hospital, we have not faced any issues, because even with this lockdown situation, we are in a position to procure the consumables or the medications that we require for the patients. So we did not face this major brunt about with this issue of lockdown.
There was no issues. Okay. What about Miss Josephine?
Yeah, see, PPE is adequate in supply. We haven't faced any shortage.
Any issues? What about Miss Sonimol?
Yes, yes. For me also, it's adequate supply I'm getting.
That is very nice to know,
Very
because
nice.
Initially, though, there was a shortage across, because even the common man wanted to buy PPE. There were photos of even a coconut vendor wearing a entire, suit. So now things are being streamlined. People are being educated.
People are
manufacturing has increased, and this thing it has been made available to all the healthcare organization in adequate numbers, I think. So now over to Ms. Sonimol. So Ms. Sonimol, with the big setup, with routine patients, with COVID patients, and with the lockdown of some nurses would have been stuck up at home, some may not be able to travel to the hospital. What was your contingency plan or your backup plan, and what was your, how did you manage your nursing? So could you please elaborate on that, your contingency plan and the challenges faced? The second question for you would be your best experience in this crisis, and some of the challenges also you can share.
The contingency plan of COVID I have made. The hospital is also divided into two sectors, that is COVID and non-COVID. And the non-COVID sector, we operate with 1/3 of nurses under quarantine at any given point. And again, we have 2-shift duty in all over the non-COVID area. Again, in coming to the COVID area, we again divided into COVID facility into ward and ICU with strict protocols and designated staffs. And for them, we have a separate facility for accommodation. We have a separate hostel for them. And for the nutrition, we have 4 times dining area for them. So we have equipped with all the contingency plan for COVID and non-COVID areas. And the main challenges I have faced during the training of these nurses. So overcome to the normal duty, as my hospital is functioning as a normal hospital also in some time. So then I have to manage two parallelly. So to taking the staff nurses for the training is really a challenge for me. And that I have overcome due to the mainly because of the scheduling of my training after the duty time. And again, the nutritional aspects. The first month of the starting of this COVID duty, all my nurses are very panicked and anxious about their health and their nutrition, their staying, and about their health status also. And as a health worker, I also stand with them, and also we all the leaders motivated our younger nurses, and we planned our menu with a dietitian, and we have provided them with a 4+1 additional nutritional supply to all the nurses who may be deployed in the COVID area. Again, for the accommodation, we have separated from the normal hostel from these COVID nurses, those who are staying in the hostel. Even the dining area of the hostel inside that premises is also we have designated into 2 areas, that is COVID and non-COVID area. So these are the assistance we have provided for overcoming my challenges. And again, for the stress
the
and
shortage, for the shortage, I'm asking about the shortage of manpower. I am asking about manpower shortage if you had faced, and because you have to manage the routine IPD and your OPDs, also your COVID area, plus lockdown is there. Have you faced manpower shortage? If there was any manpower shortage, what were the arrangements you did to overcome the same?
The manpower planning I have divided in this only, the COVID and non-COVID, and we have a designated plan for that. The challenges I have overcome very easily because of my scheduling. And I have extended my duty for some of the specialized area. I have even extended duty for 2-shift duty. So these are the challenges for first few weeks I have experienced. After that, I have standardized my duty list. And right now in our COVID area, we are taking 6-hour duty. That means 4 shifts in a day. And the non-COVID area, normal, the 3 regularized duty.
So the volumes increase. Now you are doing routinely nurses do a 8 hours duty, right? And now because of the COVID issue, staff are put on a 6 hours duty.
Yes.
The volumes increase. If the volumes increase, then how would you manage?
so that we considering they are wearing a full PPI, so they cannot go for a 8 full hour long duty with that PPI. So we reduced it to 6 hour duty, and it is a Kerala government mandate to also for us to run the COVID area. So the COVID isolation unit, we planned for that. And I said you earlier also, I have pooled some nurses that we called as reserve nurses that we kept in the pool at any given point. My ICU nurses will get exhausted. I can manage with the reserve nurses. So that is the backup plan we are having.
That is great. And thank you for that. Now over to Ms. Rajeshwari. I hope now the connectivity issue is gone. So Ms. Rajeshwari, I would request you to just share your experience as a faculty of your college and also as a, a TNAI president. What were the challenges with regard to the teachers and the students, with regard to the faculty and the students in times of COVID crisis?
Okay. So like after the, I mean, when the government has announced like, the institutions are to be closed, almost all the colleges, schools, we closed. And the students were in the hostel and they were, and the second day, third day, we started, I mean, the people started questioning why you are still keeping open the college. So we, I mean, some of the students, local students, and even some non-local students also, they went out, but still some students were staying in the hostel. And hostel faculty, they were taking care of us and we care of them, and sorry, and we were like planning like what to do, how to go on. And by the time there was this lockdown was announced, and some students they went off and some still were there, so we could not. So we thought of like a principal ma'am, I mean almost all the colleges, they were thinking like how to go on with the academic, because the main dilemma of the students is the main challenge is because they are in the clinical posting, and what is going to happen and when this lockdown will be opened, they don't know. So they were worried about their curriculum and their clinical posting and all. So we thought of like at least we will try to finish the syllabus curriculum part by online classes, and we started having some, I mean, with the Zoom app and Google Chat, Google Classroom, we started online classes for the students. By that, students thought, okay, something, I mean, it's going on. And we thought of like, the students were left over in the hostel and they were with the more tension, like what to do and all, because they are out of the family, they are anxious because they are being stranded in the hostel. So, and not only the hostel faculty, like all the other faculty who are responsible for their classes, like class coordinators, they started talking to the students, counseling them, and we were telling them like, we are there. I mean, we are supporting them and we are giving our schedules, and we are telling them to come for online classes. So the students were protected this one only. They were
so in brief, if you have to tell, the challenges faced by the students during COVID crisis 1, 2, 3, what you will be telling?
Yeah. So like they were having like the main thing is dilemma. If they are posted in the clinical area, what is going to happen? Because we are not qualified. And the second thing is like the syllabus and how it is going to finish. And mainly this is the time, like in the month of June, we have supplementary exams. So students are worried about the supplementary exams, how we are going to handle because of this lockdown, and how we are going to prepare. And the preparation, like once the lockdown is open, I mean, it is finishing and the students have to go back to their clinical part, like how we are going to take care of the patient, because we don't know like who is coming with infection or like we are worried about that. So with all these things, like students have to be prepared with online classes, because INC has organized some webinar classes for the students and for the faculty. So we have allowed all the students with the links we have shared, and we made them to attend all those webinar classes, e-learning, and we made all of them to learn about this COVID. If they are posted, I mean, after clinical, when they are posted in the clinical area also, they will be ready to handle the patients, not COVID patients, the routine patients, like protecting them.
The top 3 challenges.
Yeah, and coming to the, even in the hospital, they were feeling like, because they are left over
in the hostel without physical activity. So we told them to do some yoga, meditation, and asked them to have some indoor games so that they will have diversion, like, and they can do their activities. Coming to the challenges of the staff, they also have, like, they are also worried, like whether, because no, the students are in the peak level of the academics, like what is going to happen. So then we thought of going for online classes, and whatever it is, we started and it is going on. And now the thing is, like, some of the faculty, like, who are not used for the long term the computer and all, some has represented that they have the problem, like more exposure to radiation, eye strain, backache, headache, like that, but still they are managing. And there is, in private, some of the institutions, they made their faculty to come, I mean, like a compulsory to come to the college. For them, they have like a job and financial security, because they, due to lockdown, they are not able to come to the colleges. They, I mean, they are taking online classes from the home. So they have the tension, what is going to happen to our job. And financial support, I mean, whether we are going to get the full salary or how they are going to pay. This is the one challenge what they are having. And the next challenge is, like, after lockdown, what is going to happen? Because we all has to go back to the clinicals with the students, if it is community or in any hospital. Like, we don't know, like, who is exposed, who are the with in the contact with the patients. So we are worried about that. For that reason also, the faculty also were all, I mean, we made them to attend all the webinar classes, whatever INC has planned. I mean, they have given, and other so many webinars have come, and we have attended all those webinar classes during this lockdown period. And as a TNA president of Telangana, like, I have some representations came from the staff who are working in the hospital, like regarding the, like, what we will tell, they cannot work like for this continuously for 14 days and with the PPEs in this hot sun. So they wanted to go for quarantine leave after every 5 days. Like 5 days they want to work and they want to take 5 days leave. And for that, the government told it should be like internal arrangements in the, I mean, in their hospitals. So we talked to the people and they told, like, okay, they agreed for 3 days to the leave. Still the staff are insisting that they want 5 days, like after 5 days when they come back, they will be like, they're very active and doing without any tension, and say they can do the work better. So we told the, I mean, management people, administrators to look into it. They can do for it. And some staff told that, like, where there is no COVID center, so those staff were not getting enough supplies, especially masks. So because most of the supplies are, almost all supplies are going for the COVID center. So these government hospitals, they were having lack of supplies, especially masks. So we have represented to TNA headquarters, and with our request, they have sent 5,000 surgical masks and 2,000 N95 masks to Hyderabad and I mean, total Telangana district. And we have, with the acknowledgement of health minister, we have distributed all those masks to all the hospitals. And the same thing was done to all the states. Almost all states, TNA has supplied surgical masks and N95 masks. And coming to the School of Nursing faculty, especially in Hyderabad, like Gandhi School of Nursing and Usmania School of Nursing staff, they were posted. They were forced to work in the hospital. I mean, all the colleges faculty were coming like 20% and doing online classes, but School of Nursing and Gandhi School of Nursing especially, they were posted. It's a COVID center, so they were posted in the wards, and even they are not, no, they were telling that they are not seeing to the age, because this COVID, they were telling like above 50 has to take care, and with comorbids, they have to take care. But that point they did not consider, and they post all the faculty. I mean,
hope that was rectified later. Hope that issue is rectified.
Yeah, that we represented, and they only it will be okay. But because of the gap, like in nursing education and nursing services, this is very hard for the faculty to accept it. But at last they have accepted. For like these things, like the government, the people, they have to involve I mean, like if they are involved in clinical decision making as equal partners and in policy development and implementation, I mean, the hospital and the school, maybe all the faculty might have accepted without any problem. So I feel that will not be any problem if it has been discussed in a better manner. They could have been posted in hospitals.
Thank you, Ms. Rajeshwari, for your
these
inputs.
are the challenges like what we have seen.
Thank you, Ms. Rajeshwari, for the inputs. And it's interesting to know, because for the first time I'm hearing in COVID setup, there were adequate PPEs, and in non-COVID setup, they were having shortage of PPE, which you people had helped them rectify. Thank you so much. Now, the last speaker, last question to Ms. Swati. Could you please elaborate on the psychological impact or the probable psychological impact on the nurses and the measures to overcome the same?
Yeah, I'll divide it between psychological impact on long term and short term. And first I will take short term, where the nurses were, as you all know, like it was a sudden lockdown in the country, and there was, especially that created some part of issues or fear everywhere. It was not only in the nursing, but it was all over India. And that also came into nursing, because we started getting COVID positive patients, and there were many issues in the beginning because many clarities were not there. Pandemic, nobody had experience. We had many issues related to PPE. There was I
would request you to stick on to the topic of psychological impact 1, 2, 3, and what are whether it is short term and long term, and what are this thing because of time constraints, please.
And so the first thing what I would say is that PPE was an issue everywhere, which is now rectified, which we all know. Then the issues were, because we are women-dominated profession, many had issues related to how to manage in the lockdown, the household activities and the patients. And then there were also issues related to going back home, because it was not possible. Then they had to manage their home front also, because they had to stay in the hospitals, some people. And there were some issues related to that. That created a lot of fear. And then as the days went, then stigmatization started in, where a lot of healthcare workers, most of them were nurses, and they were not accepted in the places where they were staying, and their families also suffered because of that. And there was also, again, there was lack of communication, because all the management people were so busy in managing the whole administrative part. So somewhere the nurses really felt left out. That was the thing. And now the issues is the patient mortality, and that fear factor of patient mortality, managing the patient body care, managing the other issues, because there are no relatives now with the patients. So there are a lot of anxiety, fears, which are now changing, but the actual issue is anxiety, because there are more and more new problems which are coming at the short term. With the long term thing, I could say is that burnout will happen definitely. Depression will come up, because we have never seen so many deaths happening. Okay. And that is again an issue which the nurses will definitely face in the long run. And there will be nurses who would not want to come back, but there are so many strong nurses who are ready to come back also. So that is a very positive note we have. And compassion fatigue is there, definitely. And for that, what we can do is definitely, as I think Josephine said, that talking, communication, I think she's doing the fantastic job. I really loved all the speakers here. Like Belinda also said that she has an open door policy. All these activities, and even the food and the immunity, what Sonimol also said, all these things are so very important now. But now we have to take care of their emotional hygiene. Emotional hygiene comes only with proper thinking, meditation, breathing exercises, prayers, and being together, and counseling activities should be there for nurses regularly now. So these are the things I feel we all should take into consideration now.
Very rightly said about the emotional health. It's a very good point. So do you know of hospitals which had put some measures in place to bring down the anxiety and fear among the nurses?
Yes. There are, here in Mumbai, they had brought a magician in one of the municipal hospitals, and the nurses were very happy because that was a good stress buster. And there are many places where they are hiring counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists for their nurses, and that is helping the nurses a lot. So many of the organizations are doing great jobs here. Yes.
And any suggestions for alleviating all these psychological impact?
I think clear communication, the management should also be there. Basically, the physical presence when you take your rounds and all, that should be there. You should also recognize your staff with reinforcing and motivating them their good things. Okay, giving small token of gifts, small parties.
Appreciation.
Yeah, appreciation. All these small things will take a long way currently. And there are various activities which you all can do in smaller groups, and that will really pep them up. And pep talks are very much needed because most of our nurses are young, and they are looking forward when a CNO comes and speaks to them, they feel very elated. When a CEO comes and talks to them, they feel very nice. And I think this is something what we have to, do it regularly in this period at least.
Very right. Can I ask Ms. Josephine, Belinda and Sonimol to share quickly in a minute on what are the measures you all have put in place to take care of the anxiety and fear factor of the nurses, their psychological aspect?
So in continuation with what Swati said, I think counseling plays a great role.
In your hospital, what have you done?
Yeah. Same thing in my hospital. And there are times you will see the young nurses waiting to meet the nursing head, and they will just sit and talk to you, all their concerns. And it is basically more of managing the family and the professional life. But if you balance the roster and make it appropriate and conducive for them, they are willing to perform in the hospital, and you give them the confidence so that they can back home also they can manage. Another challenge with the psychological is how to commute, especially hospital in Gurgaon and with a lot of lockdown around, commuting is a problem. So we as nurse leaders, if you talk to the management, arrange transport for them, be there for them, or if husband wife both are in different shift, there is a challenge in the roster. I think every step you try to understand, be there. So nurse leaders have to be more visible, more approachable, more participating, and ready to help. That is the only thing we need to do in this hour so that nurses feel that they are taken care and their needs will be met. And top management always spending, I am seeing in our hospital, they come, they talk to them, they go inside the COVID unit and interact with the nurses who are working in that unit. They feel very, very nice. And that also happening quite often, quite regularly. They feel they are being not isolated and their needs are on top priority by the management also. So
thank you, Ms. Josephine.
Overall, it's working.
Thank you, Ms. Josephine. Belinda, any measures which you want to share with the audience, what you all have put in place? Just the measures to take care of their psychology.
In addition to what Josephine has mentioned, probably we also are carrying out those. But I think the head nurses are the ones who are in direct contact with the staff nurses. So from my end, there's every day a virtual meeting or a meeting or briefing with the head nurses that they are like the mother of these staffs, of these young staffs, where they have to be positive, they have to keep their cool, they have to handle them in a better way, and make them feel comfortable and assured that we are with them.
Any meditation or yoga or anything else? You all have any diversional therapy for nurses in any of the hospitals?
Music.
Sonimol.
Yeah, we started with a counseling session. So weekly counseling session for all the COVID nurses, and also weekly 1 hour burnout program. So that is basically we will play some music and they will dance, and again we have some quiz competitions. So these are some small measures we take, and again we are continuing with the online coffee with the CNO and CEO. So this is the measures. We cannot have direct contact, but still we will say everybody to come in online and we will have coffee together.
Thank you for that. Ms. Josephine was telling something. Any other measure, Ms. Josephine, in your hospital?
Yeah, the same thing in continuation with what Soni said. Nurses love music and dance. So we forward them short clips of movies and music, and they really like it. And very good motivating short messages, quotes, very good quotes. That is
Okay.
also good.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now over to Ms. Mupidi Rajeshwari. You wanted to share some points, anything which you have not discussed with regard to the challenges faced by the faculty and students, or as a TNAI president for Telangana chapter, any challenges you have come across, anything else you want to share? Quickly, please.
Yes, ma'am. Like the question is like, can student be posted in COVID areas? It is no, because student cannot be posted in COVID areas. If really there is staffing crisis, maybe fourth year students can be posted, but with proper training regarding the disease condition as well as the precautions needs to be taken and should be posted with the guidance of the staff. I mean, that means either the board staff or the faculty has to be accompanying with the student, then only we can post them in the clinical area. But as of now, there are no guidelines in the State Nursing Council or Indian Nursing Council for posting the students in COVID area. But Minister of Health and Government of India, they have told that because of the crisis, if there is a need that we have to use the students, then they were telling like first year, second year, we cannot use, but third year and fourth year can be for the mild cases, mild to moderate cases. But severe cases can be handled by only MSc nursing students and post-basic BSc nursing students. So there were no guidelines. So mostly we cannot post our regular BSc students in the COVID to take care of the COVID patients, positive patients.
Okay. Any take-home message for the students and staff? Any take-home message, Ms. Rajeshwari?
Like the need of the hour is both faculty and students get prepared themselves for COVID battle as much as they can be by attending e-learning and webinars on COVID, and also learn from experiences for others. Integrating education and services will bridge the gap between nursing education and nursing services, by which all teaching faculty can directly or indirectly can be engaged in the battle with what we all nurses can fight against COVID and save the life of patients suffering with COVID, like soldiers fighting in the battlefield, saving the country. So TNA will represent nurses and serve as their spokesperson with allied national, international organizations, governmental and other bodies and public in time of need. So any staff, any nurse, if there is any problem, they can very well contact TNA and they're ready to help the person.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rajeshwari, for that message on bridging the gap is the need of the hour from the clinic academics to the clinical side, so that everybody from the college also can participate in times of crisis like this in the hospital. Thank you so much. Now coming to Swati, could you please tell a takeaway message for the audience?
I think now we are already in the third stage of COVID, and our take-home message, I feel, because the nurses are going into moral distress phase because of lot of mortality and all. So we have to boost them, increase their confidence. And I feel the biggest weapon of any crisis today is a good positive mind. A positive mind which gives you positive thoughts, positive emotions, positive attitude, positive approach. And with all these things, I'm definitely that they will go for positive actions and we will win this war, definitely.
Thank you so much, Ms. Swati. Over to Ms. Sonimol, your take-home message for the audience, please.
Yeah, of course, I have two takeaway message. First, planning is important for better outcome. And the second one, take care of your staff. They will take care of our patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sonimol. Ms. Josephine?
Technology is the need of the hour. Nurses have to upgrade their skills in technology now. Like, we can't do paper documentation anymore. The situation is coming. We need to document in smartphones and mobile webinars, conferences. Next is, nurses are doing a great job in our country right now. Be proud to be a nurse. Keep learning, keep shining.
Thank you, Ms. Josephine. Over to Ms. Belinda for your takeaway message for the audience.
Yeah, my takeaway message is COVID is here to stay. COVID is, I guess, it's going to be with us for many more months to come. So we need to be prepared for it every day, just like a thief who is ready to enter into your house. So we need to prepare for it and work against it or work to prevent it. And my message to I just forgot to say one. You can see this the clipping. We care for you.
Yes.
Our staffs wear the PPEs, so the patients cannot see the faces of the nurses and the doctors and the housekeeping staff. So this sticker is put onto the PPE where they write their name and they say, "We care for you."
Oh,
So,
great.
Belinda,
so
this,
this,
Innovations.
Nice,
Superb
very
it
nice.
is.
yeah. So this
Mm.
message is for
So
our young nurses.
the sticker the patient puts on the mask
The
of the
staff
healthcare
puts it on
provider.
the PPE. The staff
Okay.
puts it on the
Staff put on
PPE.
the PP because they cannot speak often. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
So
just,
this message goes to our young nurses that we care for you. Trust your nursing leaders, trust your healthcare organizations. When you join this organization, whichever organization you have joined, you have joined with a trust that they will take care of you and they are with you. So in this moment of crisis, be with your nursing leaders, be with your healthcare organization. They will they will care for you. And as Josephine said, uh, if ultimately you will care for the patients who come to our for our services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Belinda. I would like to thank all the panelists for sharing all your experiences and all your valuable inputs, starting from Ms. Sonimol, who spoke about planning is very important and how she had planned her setup and the nurses and how she had taken care of her nurses. And then Ms. Josephine talked about the importance of concise communication. And one important thing which I picked up from her was the restriction of mobile during this time of crisis. So mobile restriction, and also that the patient education plays a major role during this times of crisis. And then coming to Ms. Belinda, she has given valuable inputs on the staff safety measures which are taken in hospital, and also how some innovative things she is doing in her hospital, like how they are using stickers to say to the patient that they care for their patient, and about the importance of monitoring during donning and doffing as well. And then coming to Ms. Swati, the importance of counseling, the importance of staff to feel protected and taken care of, and how to take care of their anxiety and fears. Also, then Ms. Rajeshwari spoke on the challenges of the staff and students, and especially about staff doing training from home, having backache and eye strain. I like that also. And how to get over, working from your desktop, your occupational hazards, and also uh, the bridging the gap between the academics and the clinical side. So thank you all for this wonderful session, and a big salute to all the nurse warriors and other members of the healthcare team for putting their lives at risk on the front line to serve our community and country. You are our real life superheroes because of your selflessness, willingness, fearlessness, and sacrifice. I'm confident that we will overcome the present crisis and we will emerge victorious and more stronger than ever before. Stay positive and stay safe. Thank you for joining. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants who have taken their time out for joining and participating in this webinar. And also I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Voice of Healthcare for being so thoughtful in including a nursing webinar, especially to discuss about the challenges, which is the need of the hour. Hope we have such webinars in future too. Thank you so much. And now it is time for the question and answer session from the participant. So some top questions which have come from the participants. One of the question is addressed to Ms. Josephine. It is about the infection control nurse. What is the role of an infection control nurse apart from the routine duties which she's doing now during the COVID crisis? What other things she has to observe?
Okay, I will just list one by one since the time is limited. The ICN stands at the entrance of the OPD where the patients are getting screened, supervising how the OPD nurses are asking the questionnaire and getting the queries answered. ICN also supervises what's happening in the emergency department where patient, the flu clinic, how it is running and how the specimen collection is happening. ICNs also come and check in the IPD area where the preoperative patients are there, where the sampling is happening and the patients are prepared for surgery, because every patient is getting tested for COVID positive or negative. ICNs also get into COVID unit and see the cleaning and disinfection, whether the housekeeping and GDS are fully trained, nurses training related to various COVID topics, specifically touching upon infection control topics. So overall, ICNs are training every group of healthcare worker, and they also audit and they have their audit checklist. So they present their data to the infection control officer, and they come out with the suggestions, queries, and some surprises that which people are not complying. So it is, I think, a good job ICNs are doing these days. In fact, their workers increased than earlier.
Thank you, Ms. Josephine. Now over to Ms. Sonimol. Can you please enumerate those 5 nurses' roles in your hospital, expanded nurses' role?
Okay, first is the screening guards for the screening.
Okay.
Second is flu clinic nurses for the fever clinic. Third is CSR clinic for the camp purpose. Fourth is kiosk nurses for the sampling. Fifth is home care nurses to extend care for the home care facility. And sixth is reserve nurses for the backup purpose.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Interesting to know some kiosk nurse also, a new role of the nurse. So which we can, others also can think of if you have a kiosk in your hospital. And one second. Somebody has asked how to communicate when you wear PPE, how to communicate to the nurses. For the nurse leaders, they have asked this question. So any of the 3, Sonimol, Josephine or Belinda can answer. So I think already because Josephine and Sonimol has answered, I would request Belinda to answer this question. Once you're with the PPE, especially with this N95 mask and everything, how the nurse administrator will be able to provide psychological support or communicate to the staff?
The nurse administrators to communicate with the staff who are working in the COVID ward. That's the question?
Yeah.
No, communicate and give psychological support, especially wearing PPE.
Patients.
Yeah. When the staff nurses are in the area, it may not be difficult. It may not be easy for a nurse administrator to communicate at that end. But of course, which I am doing in our hospital is, I have instructed the nurses that when they go off duty, they can come to my office, and I need to see them on a one-to-one basis to know that, they are doing well, there are no problems. So that is how I communicate with them as a nursing leader. But of course, at the floor level, the head nurse is along with them, or the team leaders along with them. So if they have to communicate anything, then they are just on the floor where they can communicate and get their matters sorted out. Have I answered the question?
Yes, yes. Okay. And the next question. Just one second. For how many days the nurses are working continuously in our hospital, and after how many days then after working in the COVID unit they are quarantined? This I would request Ms. Josephine, Belinda and Sonimol to answer. 3 of them, because you all are handling.
In the COVID area, we have 6-hour shift with the 3 batches in place and the 4th batch as a backup.
Okay.
So they do 7 days duty, straight 7 days duty, and then they go for a 14-day quarantine. So okay. So 7 plus 14, 21st, they come back on the 22nd day again for the roster, and then again they go for another 14 days quarantine. This is in the COVID unit.
Okay, that's what
that is the roster we follow. Yeah.
Okay.
Very strictly we follow that.
14 days you give quarantine at a stretch, and yes, 14 days duty. Okay.
Yes. No, 7 days duty, 14 days
14
quarantine.
Days quarantine. What about Belinda's
6 hours roster.
6 hours. What about Belinda's hospital?
In our hospital, we are going as per the BMCR municipal guidelines. Okay. It clearly says that if you are equipped yourself with a proper PP and you're working in the COVID ward, there's no need to be quarantined. So our nurses are working in the COVID wards. Okay, as of now, there is a 15 days roster which has been put for them. Then depending on the choice of the nurse, if she's feeling burnt out or she feels okay, I need to be out. So then there is no policy that we are following on quarantining them. Of course, there are different hospitals who have different policies as per their hospital call which they take. But in our hospital, we do not quarantine them unless they exhibit some signs and symptoms of COVID. Then we take them out of the unit and we do the necessary investigations, and that's how we go about it.
Okay, and what about Sonimol?
So I'm going for a 6-hour duty for straight 7 days, and again 7 days quarantine, and again on duty. So for this, like this, I have 4 batches at a time. So one is on duty, one is on quarantine. So these ones I'm also managing. 7 duty.
7 days quarantine. You are giving a 14 days quarantine. Yeah.
7 days quarantine.
7 days quarantine. No, Josephine was telling about a 14 days quarantine.
See, Bobby, what I notice when you give them enough rest, like a 14 days quarantine, what with my personal experience, they are very happy. They have time to relax, they rest, and they come back with, rejuvenated, charged up to perform the job again. It's not an
good to know that nurses are given immunity. I'm good to know that nurses are given immunity boosters and high protein diet in many of the hospitals.
A good diet they get.
Yeah, my personal experience being in the bedside nursing for 10 long years and having handled many of the natural disasters and emergencies, sometimes in crisis, it is though we plan for a 6 hours and all, with the shortage and with the existing pressure of work, we may have to extend it to 8 hours, sometimes even 12 hours. We may have to make from 3-shift duty to 2-shift duty, because then you'll have adequate number of staff. But believe me, most of the nurses are very, very cooperative at that point of time, and they volunteer themselves to do such duties. Yeah. So I think all the questions pertaining to challenges faced by the nurses at the front line had been addressed by the panelists. So thank you so much once again. And other questions, the participants can directly contact in the Facebook link. We'll revert back to you for the other questions which were not relevant to the topic, but so many questions were asked, and due to lack of time, we are winding up. Thank you all so much, and a big thank you to all my nurse warriors, my little angels out there, and my future nurse warriors, so many who are attending this session. Thank you all so much, and namaste. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.